Well, The Acolyte has officially ended its first season, and possibly only season? Is that a good thing or not? Well, that's what we're going to decide today as we look at episode 8 of the first and possibly only season of The Acolyte, titled The Acolyte, and decide whether or not it's a good end if it is indeed the end. Hello everybody, my name is Dustin, aka Drex, and welcome back to the channel, and today we are discussing the Season 1 finale of The Acolyte. The episode picks up right after the end of episode 6, with Osha wearing Quimir's helmet. While wearing the helmet, she sees the future of May killing Sol without a weapon, which pleases Quimir. Since they both want to get to May, but need each other to get to it, they work together to go get to May, and as they leave, a shadowy figure reaches over the corner in order to look at them. As to who that is, I will cover it in the theory section of the video. Meanwhile, Sol and May are in a ship above Brendok, and May ends up escaping from Sol, and he chases her down to where May's coven was when she was growing up. Meanwhile, Venestra Rowe meets with a senator who wants to put the Jedi under inspection for the reason that exactly comes true, as he basically just predicts what happens with Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. Granted, he's off about by 100 years, but I mean, he's still right. Osha and Quimir end up getting to Brendok, and Quimir ends up getting in a lightsaber battle with Sol, and Sol ends up destroying Quimir's lightsaber. While that is happening, May ends up meeting up with Osha, and May tells Osha that Sol killed their mother. Osha doesn't believe her, and the two end up fighting, but May is able to escape, where she then runs into Sol, who is holding Quimir at the point of his lightsaber, and is able to attack Sol and take his lightsaber. May doesn't want to kill Sol, however, despite Quimir urging her to, but instead wants him to face judgment from the Jedi Council, and she's able to get Sol to confess to killing their mother. However, without Sol knowing, Osha is right behind him. And despite him trying to explain himself, Osha begins to force choke Sol, and the only words he's able to get out is that it is okay, as Osha continues to force choke him, killing Sol, which impresses and surprised Quimir. As Osha kills Sol, more Jedi arrive on Brendok, led by Venestra Rowe, as she's able to sense Quimir, as Quimir hasn't had his helmet on. Quimir then senses this, and he puts back on his helmet, and everyone begins to leave the coven as the Jedi close in. May takes Osha through the tunnels that young May was apparently able to use to escape the fire on Brendok from when she was younger, and May takes Osha to the tree that we saw them at the beginning of episode 3. As the Jedi arrive, Venestra Rowe ends up sensing what happened on Brendok 16 years ago as she goes over Sol's body, and Quimir ends up looking at her from a distance in the shadows. As Rowe begins to start to sense him, she looks over to where he was, but Quimir has disappeared. Quimir shows up to where Osha and May are, and May wants to stay back with the Jedi, but Osha wants to leave. So the sisters say goodbye as Quimir erases May's memory of the two of them so the Jedi cannot track them. The Jedi take in May, as we quickly learn that she remembers nothing from the age of 8 and has no memory at all of her sister. Venestra Rowe then explains that Sol killed their mother, and she ends up framing Sol for the murders of the other Jedi. During this, we also learn that she was Quimir's old master, and we see that Venestra Rowe in secret burned Sol's body, and that she feels sorry for it, as she tells the senators that Sol was the one responsible for the deaths. And we then see Osha, along with Quimir, back on the Mystery Planet, as they presumably are about to begin training, and the episode ends with Vernestra Rwoh going to see Master Yoda as we see the back of his head. So, that's it for Season 1 of The Acolyte, and before I get into the review segment of the video, I'd like to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I actually have a question. Do you think that Yoda was CGI or a puppet? And what were your thoughts on this episode, or just the show as a whole? And do you think, and more importantly, hope that there will be a Season 2 of this show? Anyways, back to the review. So, as for my thoughts on this episode, well, I think this is the best episode yet. I think it was actually really good, and not like the rest of the show that was just range from bad to kinda sorta good. This was actually genuinely good, and surprising, as I did not expect Soul to die, and I really did not expect it to be by Osha. But it does make sense, and it helps wrap up the canon, as that kills everyone who knew the word Sith aside from Osha, who is now a bad guy, and May, who had her mind erased. This also is the first time Star Wars has actually done the protagonist goes from wearing white to black and actually becomes a bad guy, as Luke and Rey both went from wearing white to black, but ultimately stayed good guys. I mean, I guess Anakin did it, but his fate was decided 25 years before he actually became a bad guy, so he does not really count. I also really love the whole tone and just general vibe of the entire episode, as I could tell from the beginning of the episode that something big was going to happen just from the way the story was going and how it was all being framed. And speaking of framed, I really like the framing of Soul, but from a character perspective, as, while we haven't had a lot of Vernestra Rwoh, what little bit we have had shown that she's more of a shady Jedi than all the rest, and this actually makes a bad thing that a Jedi does more of a character thing, and not so much the Jedi themselves are bad, which a lot of people and myself have had problems with up until like last episode where I was kind of able to forgive it. But for a lot of people, the Jedi in the show have been framed as more bad guys than good, and a lot of people aren't really liking it. But me, I'm actually starting to really like this. This also answers a few questions left over from what has been raised the rest of the season, like who was Qymir's master when he was a Jedi, how did May survive the fall from the bridge in episode 3 and 7, and as for that one specifically, I'm not quite sure how I feel about the answer. It is an answer, which I suppose is better than no answer, I guess, but it's something that will either not bother me or will really bother me. Right now, I don't really care, but it's one of those things that as time go on, it'll either bug me beyond belief or I just won't blink an eye at it. The last thing I want to talk about that is also good is how this really leads into a Season 2, which brings me to my next point of my theories. And let's just start with the one I teased earlier. Who is that mystery man in the shadows? Well, I think, and I'm pretty sure everyone is thinking that knows pretty much anything about Star Wars lore, and might have even been confirmed, but I haven't checked yet. And that is, I am very positive that that is Darth Plagueis. And if that name doesn't sound familiar to you, you might remember him as Darth Plagueis the Wise, the person that Palpatine talked about in Revenge of the Sith. And Darth Plagueis is most likely Qymir's Sith Master. And not only is Plagueis probably Qymir's Sith Master, he indeed was also Palpatine's Sith Master, as the Padawan that Palpatine was talking about in Revenge of the Sith that killed Plagueis in his sleep was actually Palpatine. And if this isn't confusing enough, that entire story also happened during Phantom Menace. So while Duel of the Fates is happening, you can also just imagine that somewhere else Palpatine is slitting Plagueis' throat. And that's my only theory that I have from what has been posted from this season. My theories from next season are there will be a bit of a time skip. May probably will either still be with the Jedi, being trained by a Jedi, or just be completely left out of the story in general. I think Osha will be pretty good into her Sith training. Will most likely get more Plagueis and learn more about Quimir's backstory, both how he used to be a Jedi, why he is no longer a Jedi, and how he met Plagueis, and hopefully how May ended up running into him, because that is one question this season did not answer. But that is all I have to say for this video. I give this episode a 8 out of 10. As I said before, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And before I tune out, I will also most likely be doing a full season review, going over the good, the bad, the mid of the entire season, and whether or not I think there should be a season 2. But that's all I have to say in this video. Later, haters.